So just call me Ed another night.
Ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He's on. Good evening. Welcome to the Zanesville City Schools Board of Education organizational meeting for January the 11th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin.
Here.
Mrs. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Hickman. Here. Mrs. Lee.
Here.
Ms. Long.
Here. We'll take nominations for president, please.
I'll nominate Valencia Clark.
Baldwin nominates Clark.
A second. A second.
Yeah, don't need a second. Just one vote.
Be it resolved that the nominations be closed for the president during the 2023 year. May I have a motion, please,
Hickman will move.
and a second.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Election of the president, Valencia Clark. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes. Nominations for vice president. I nominate Lori Lee.
Clark nominates Lee.
I don't have to do a second, right? So roll call, please.
So-
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Be it resolved that the nominations be closed for vice president during the 2023 school year. May I have a motion, please? William move. And a second. Long, a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Election of vice president Lori Lee. Roll call, please.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes. Setting the time and the date for our regular meetings, be it resolved to set the date and times. We want to remain on Tuesday.
Yes.
Everybody, at 6 o'clock,
Third Tuesday.
third Tuesday each month, 6 o'clock PM. We'll say Zanesville City Schools Board of Education with options of going to the buildings like we've been doing. May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin will move.
And a second? Long, a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes. Establishing the service fund, be it resolved to establish service fund for board members, the maximum of $20,000. May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move. A second, please.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Agenda for regular meetings, be it resolved to approve agenda for the regular board meetings. May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second, clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes. Investing of the funds, be it resolved that authorization be given for the treasurer to invest funds at the best rates available during the 2023 calendar year. May I have a motion, please? Leo move. And a second.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Interest distribution. Approve the distribution of interest as follows. Community Financial Advisors Investment Account, Park National Bank, Park National Bank Fund 024-9700 District Health Account, Park National Bank Fund 024-9701 District Dental Account, Star Ohio Investment Account General Fund, Star Ohio Plus Investment Account General Fund. Interest will be distributed to the following funds based upon their end of the month cash balance: general fund, auxiliary funds, health fund, and the dental fund. May I have a motion, please? Long move. And a second,
Lee will second.
any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Advance in taxes, be it resolved that authorization be given for the treasurer to request advances as needed from the county auditor for real estate and personal taxes. May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin will move.
And a second,
Hickman will second.
any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Authorization to pay bills. Be it resolved that authorization be granted to the superintendent or his designee and treasurer to process and pay bills prior to board approval to be submitted at next regular meeting. A motion, please. Clark will move.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Calamity days. Be it resolved that authorization be granted to the superintendent or his designee to declare calamity days as and when needed. May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second, Clark will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes. Emergency declarations. Be it resolved that the Zanesville Board of Education declare that the emergency requirements of the Zanesville City School District are for the current operating expenses. May I have a motion, please?
Lee will move.
And a second,
Hickman will second.
any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Legislative liaison. Be it resolved that Lori, are you still interested? Lori Lee be appointed to serve as legislation liaison during the calendar year 2023. May I have a motion, please? Will move. And a second,
Lee will second.
any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Student achievement liaison. Be it resolved that Lori
Yep. I'll take that.
Lori Lee be appointed to serve as student achievement liaison during the calendar year 2023. May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin will move.
And a second? Long second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes. Bond coverage. Be it resolved to approve bond coverage of $20,000 each for the president of the board and superintendent and $50,000 for the treasurer. May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Audit committee. Be it resolved to appoint one administrator, Mike, right?
Yep,
Mike
me.
Young, and two board members. I think it was
Baldwin.
Kyle and Brett were on it last year.
Still
That's
the same.
Kyle Baldwin and Brett Hickman to serve as the audit committee. May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes. Insurance representative, be it resolved to appoint one board member, Valencia Clark, to serve on the insurance committee. May I have a motion, please?
Lee will move.
And a second.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Buildings and Ground Committee, be it resolved to appoint two board members. Valencia Clark. Kyle
Mm-hmm.
and Kyle Baldwin to serve on the Buildings and Grounds Committee. May I have a motion, please?
Long move.
And a second?
Lee will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Business Advisory Council, be it resolved to appoint 2 board members,
Lee.
Lori and Janet, Lori Lee and Janet Long, to serve on the Business Advisory Council. May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin move.
Long a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes. Public Records, be it resolved to appoint the treasurer as the Board of Education designee for the Public Records training per Ohio Revised Code 149.43. May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move. In a second?
Lee will second, but Lee's listed twice in there.
Yeah, the last one is should be Baldwin.
Oh.
Lee seconds.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Adjournment. Be it resolved that the organizational meeting for the Board of Education be adjourned. May I have a motion, please?
Hickman move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Tell me when you're ready.
Oh,
You can. I just said, I advertised it as immediately following, so.
It's okay to go. Welcome to the Zanesville City Schools Board of Education regular meeting for January the 11th, 2023. I call this meeting to order at 6:15 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Here.
Mrs. Clark,
Here.
Mr. Hickman,
Here.
Mrs. Lee,
Here.
Ms. Long.
Here. Mr. Appleman, introduction of guests, please. Thank you. God. Okay, we'll hear a report from the Zanesville Community High School. Mike.
Okay, Mr. Moore has a game this evening on the road, so I have the details here. Currently, there are 160 students enrolled. Not sure what that says. Next week, it's got some more to come next week. There's 58 exceptional education students, 15 total graduates already. 15 students have met all the requirements, and there are many others just waiting their test results. Agri Park building update back here. Second semester started this past Monday. There's 24 students from ZHS. 17 are in aquaponics and 7 are in the conservation service program, science program. Ashton Chin is our working partner for the aquaponics.
He's coming.
Waiting on word on some grant money to update their commercial kitchen. That's through OFCC, right?
Correct.
And to also put a greenhouse out back next to the Agri Park building. We applied during COVID and they just recently reopened the application. So the original,
It was supposed to be released, the names, the week of December 4th, and it wasn't. So we're
Okay.
still waiting.
So we're still waiting to hear back. They received a grant to do either one of those two projects.
Thank you.
Is that the highest,
I would do it now.
is that the highest number of students?
Yeah, 160.
That's
That's the most they've ever had. So,
So this is School Board Appreciation Month, January. So I have some certificates I would like to give you, and maybe we can get a picture taken. So if you could come out here, and our photographer this evening, we are very fortunate to have Mr. Appleman. So I will call you up and you can come up and we'll get a picture taken.
I'm so excited about that.
And we will start with Valencia Clark, please.
you just want to get a group picture.
Stay up.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, we'll just do group.
Yeah, just a group picture, yeah. Kyle Baldwin. You bet. Brett Hickman. Thank you. Lori Lee. And say the best for last. Thank you. All right, Mr. Appleman.
Over, yeah, this is my room. Can you see you or where do you want?
You could have taken the picture.
I could have, Kevin, but you volunteered, so.
One, two, three.
Okay, stay up here for 1 second, everyone. So I ask, the mayor has given me permission to present to you on his behalf a proclamation for the city of Zanesville. Whereas our community values quality education as a vital step along the pathway to success for our children. And whereas Kyle Baldwin, Valencia Clark, Brett Hickman, Lori Lee, and Janet Long contribute greatly to this community through their service on the Zanesville City School Board of Education. And whereas these local decision makers set the policies and procedures to govern all aspects of school district operation. And whereas the school board keeps attention focused on the progress toward the school district's goals and maintains a two-way communication loop with all segments of the community. And whereas these school board members are serving our community with integrity, honor, and a commitment to our children's futures. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Donald Mason, Mayor of the City of Zanesville, do hereby declare my appreciation to the members of the Zanesville City School Board and proclaim the month of January 2023 as School Board Recognition Month in Zanesville, Ohio. I urge all citizens to join me in recognizing the dedication and hard work of the local school board members and in working with them to mold an education system that meets the needs of both today's and tomorrow's children. Thank you. This is going.
One, two, three.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow.
Approval of the board minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the minutes of the Zanesville Board of Education at the regular meeting on December 20th, 2022. May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin move.
And a second.
Long a second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Report of the treasurer, Mr. Mike Young.
Okay, did anybody have any questions on any of the December reports? Nothing unusual in December for either school, Zanesville City or the community school. Everybody got a copy of the budget. So we had the budget hearing before the organizational meeting tonight. Couple things to point out. Obviously, the tax numbers come straight from the county once they receive those from the state. So that page that looks like this those are numbers that are given to me. So we do the general fund and the bond fund with that. One thing in the receipts, I'm including the anticipated increase as they phase in the new funding formula. But as we all know, we've got a couple different things. You've got a new speaker, which we've discussed is from Southeast Ohio, so that may be somewhat of an advantage. But this number, that 29,756,000, that is, I'm anticipating some increases in some things along with the funding. You know, you're getting 16% of the phase in each year over 6 years. So that's up in the air if they decide to change the formula again. And also, obviously, there's a lot of discussion about the Board of Education, State Board of Education, and how that's going to shake out with any new laws that the new legislature would put together. The other thing that sticks out on this one, when you would compare it to last year, the special revenue funds, that is a decrease in estimated revenues. It's ESSER, and we've spent some, and so it's going to run out eventually and not be there. So that's why you would see a reduction in total revenue or total available money and the total spend. Other than that, it's pretty much the same, just the same anticipations, expenditures. We know, the raises that are in the contracts and those kinds of things. So it's not as difficult to put together. Any questions on that? It's more difficult when we're negotiating and trying to do it at the same time. Then we have some donations. Those first 6 there are all for Zanesville Middle School PBIS, local businesses that they solicited, and that's what they received from those. And then on the next page there is Zane Gray got a grant from the Straker Foundation. I believe it's for a sensory room. And then the vision impaired students received $2,000 from Walmart.
Need an approval of all of the above from Mr. Young. We appreciate his work on this. May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move, and a second.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
And now we'll have superintendent recommendations by Assistant Superintendent Steve Foreman.
First up, we have the employment of professional security guard. Approve the employment of Kenneth Gray, professional security guard at John McIntyre Elementary as and when needed, beginning January 3rd of 2023 through May 26th of 2023, pending background check. Rate of pay will be $31.51 per hour, which is the prorated amount from the PSG step 1014 on the administrative salary scale.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Next, we have the employment of substitutes. Approve the following substitutes as listed as and when needed, pending appropriate certification and background checks for the 22-23 school year.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Salary adjustments for certificated employees. Approve the following personnel as listed to be granted salary adjustments effective with the current contract year. For second semester only. Reason for the adjustment is due to having completed requirements for a new classification on the salary schedule by virtue of additional study pending receipt of official transcripts.
May I have a motion, please? Long will move. And a second.
Leo second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Supplemental contracts. Approve the resignation of Peyton Norris, ZHS Ski Club Advisor, effective for the 22-23 school year. Reason for the resignation is lack of participation. Approve the following supplemental contracts as listed for the 22-23 school year, pending required certification and background check.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin move.
And a second?
Long second.
Any discussion?
What is culture club?
That's
It's
he uses
Japanese
Japanese.
and
Yeah.
different
The different Asian culture.
Asian
Okay.
cultures.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Professional development, communicable disease training. Approved to pay the following preschool staff as listed for training in communicable diseases. The training was held December 19th, 2022 for 2 hours at the rate of $25 per hour. This training is required by the state of Ohio.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move. And a second, please.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Number 6 is volunteers. Approve the following volunteers with much appreciation as listed for the Zanesville City Schools for the 2022-23 school year, pending appropriate background checks.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
21st Century Program Teachers and Aides. National Road Elementary, Zane Gray Elementary, and Zane Gray Intermediate. Approve the following personnel as listed as 21st Century Program Teacher at a rate of $30 per hour for a portion of the 22-23 school year. Teachers will be funded by 21st Century Program funds. National Road Elementary, Zane Gray Elementary, and Zane Gray Intermediate. Approve the following personnel as listed as after-school program aides at a rate of $15 per hour for a portion of the 22-23 school year. Aides will be funded by 21st Century funds.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
After-school program teachers and aides. John McIntyre Elementary, Zanesville Middle School, and Zanesville High School. Approve the following personnel as listed as after-school program teacher at a rate of $30 per hour for a portion of the 22-23 school year. Teachers will be funded by Muskingum Behavioral Health Grant Funds. John McIntyre Elementary, Zanesville Middle School, and Zanesville High School. Approve the following personnel as listed as after-school program aides at a rate of $15 per hour for a portion of the 22-23 school year. Aides will be funded by Muskingum Behavioral Health Grant Funds.
May I have a motion, please? Long will move. And a second.
Lee will second.
Any discussion?
Yeah. Probably a dumb question. But their aides. Are they in the same buildings or how was that working? Are they the same?
They can be in any of them. They're just two different grants.
The key there is the grant funding source. So like
That's what we're approving.
that's what we're approving.
Okay.
Because see, we have the 21st Century, but we don't have it for John McIntyre, and we don't have 21st Century for the middle school, and we don't have it for the high school.
Okay.
So as a
they're
result,
floating.
it's
That's correct.
same and
They
different.
can
Okay.
float
Mhm.
and it's two different sources.
Gotcha.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
FMLA leave of absence. Approve an FMLA leave of absence for Deborah Gendrich, teacher at Zanesville High School, effective December 21st, 22 to February 1st of 23. Approve the FMLA leave of absence for Christine Weiscarver, custodian at Zanesville High School, effective December 16th of 22 to December 15th of 23.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin will move.
And a second. Long second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Number 10 is an MOU ZCS data sharing agreement and college credit plus agreement. Approve the attached 23-24 memorandum of understanding and data sharing agreement between Zanesville High School, Zanesville City Schools, and Zanes State College, which enables high school students to enroll in public college on a full or part-time basis and complete non-sectarian, non-remedial courses for post-secondary credit or for high school and post-secondary credit.
May I have a motion, please? Clerk will move. And a second, please.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
School Resource Officer Agreement. Approve the attached agreement between Zanesville City Schools and the City of Zanesville for 2 police officers to work as school resource officers for 22 and 23, effective January 3rd of 2023 to May 26th of 2023 at the rate of $118,821.89, not to exceed this amount.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
If we could hop over to the agenda for number 1, it's professional development, first aid, communicable disease training. Approve Beverly Gensler, first aid class instructor after school on November 21st, 2022 at the rate of $200, funded by 21st Century and Muskegon Behavioral Health Grant. Approve Beverly Gensler, communicable disease training instructor after school on December 19th, 2022 at a rate of $200, funded by 21st Century and Muskegon Behavioral Health Grant.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin will move.
And a second. Long second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes. We'll move into board committee reports. Anything to report, Lori, on legislative?
Mike kind of alluded to the fact of the new state or the House of Representative speaker there, and that was kind of a change than what they thought in lame duck session, and that could be a very positive thing as far as his view on education and the fact that he's from Lawrence County, right and down in southeastern Ohio. So we'll be watching that, and then also watching the State Board of Education and what's happening with them. So we'll be watching those things. But that's all I have at this time for that, but I'll go into student achievement. I did attend my first Mideast board meeting this week. So I'll just give you a little bit of what happened there. I did receive numbers from Mideast, which I don't think I have heard recently how many students we have out at Mideast. So at the Zanesville campus, we currently have 68 students. We have 1 community school student out there. And then for the Buffalo campus, we have 25 students attending. And actually, I was pleasantly surprised that we are not the lowest. So we try to typically think that we have issues getting our kids out there and staying. But we were definitely out of the member schools. We were not the lowest. We were kind of like upper middle of those numbers. So that was a nice surprise. We also had a presentation done by the nursing aides, and they had put together a presentation that they've been presenting to all the labs out there. It's a 15-minute presentation on vaping, and it was phenomenal. I have a copy of the presentation. They were encouraged to possibly either think about how they could reach the member schools and work with member schools. So I'll be listening to that, but I can pass this presentation. Mike, do you want it if I give you that copy of the presentation? And then, yeah, it went to the fact of the social norms. That's how it started, and how we're conditioned to think that things are okay. And then it went into the health aspects of it. So very effective, and they were very, very good. The whole program had been presenting. We had, I think, 6 students that were there to present to us that night. So yeah, that was, it was a nice meeting, nice welcome. It was nice to hear, what's going on out there. So I will try to present, if we've had our meeting out there before I come to this meeting. As far as, other Zanesville City School, student achievement, Valencia and I both attended the STEM night last night at the middle school. Very well done, very well attended,
Very well
actually. And
Yes,
and Mike was there also. But they had some partner programs with the county library system, along with Zane State was also there. And then people from 2 representatives from the Ohio STEM Network were there, which is a big deal. I mean, they are the people that work with the TEL and Ohio Department of Education to further the STEM programming across the state. So got to speak with them a little bit and see some students and former students. Maybe feel a little old, but that's okay. Former students with children, of course. So and I think that's all I have right now.
great. Thank you, Lori. Anything with the audit committee, Mike?
Both audits have been filed. There were no management letter comments, no findings. The one thing they did suggest, we've already taken care of this evening. We typically have not made me the designee for public records training. So they said it'd be a good idea to have that formally done. So we've done what they had. I do need to go in and certify the federal piece of the audit with the clearinghouse, with the Department of Education. So I need to go in and do that. But I would say probably it'll be another month before the state would get around to reviewing it and accepting it and then releasing it. If you're on time, you get in a backlog of review up there. And then down the hallway, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to be their designee. And so the only comment that they had was they need to take the public records training, each one of them, every single year. And starting in 2024, I believe it has to be the one on the Attorney General's website. So we will discuss that further at their board meeting. Other than that, things went pretty well. I guess we did switch auditors this year, so that's always a treat sometimes to how they do it differently than the previous people. So, but we should be all good to go.
Thank you.
And of course, you guys all waived
Yes,
we waived the exit conference. So, because we didn't have anything.
anything with insurance?
Probably, I'm gonna try to limp home here, but we may have to move some money over. We've had some
Pretty significant.
decent sized claims the last 6 weeks or so. So I'll keep my eye on it as we get towards the end of January and see if we need to move some money.
Buildings and grounds have not, they make next week, but we're meeting with Moltz, whatever it is,
Moses.
tomorrow about the field at 10 o'clock. So
And your next meeting is the 7th.
the next meeting is the 17th at 8 o'clock.
And then also we're gonna have another construction meeting tomorrow.
Right.
To try to get the differences between some of the estimates on the design. Anything else we've got?
I think that's it. And then,
Matt and Chad have been working through some things.
Yeah.
Chad, we may have found the cause of the smell at ZGE. They found 2 8-foot sections of pipe that had cracks in them. Chad did, so he's gonna be in the process of repairing those. So hopefully that will take care of that.
wow. Business advisory.
They made the 24th, and I won't be able to be there. I have a meeting in Columbus that day.
You? I want to get Zach. Do we need to?
I let MCS know we would just speak on Friday. After we meet with the whole team tomorrow.
Anybody else have anything for executive? No?
So the only other thing then I guess maybe
Wow.
wasn't really covered anywhere. Levy renewal. You know. Are we wanting to go in May? That's one thing. If we do, we'll probably have to have a special to get everything in me so I can file with the Board of Elections.
I think that's imperative. We try to stay off the presidential election in November of next year.
So we talked about the ballot language changes that were discussed at OSBA.
Mhm.
So I will get in contact with Rick Maniloff from Squire. He typically does our bonds and our levies. And I'll get with him and have him get the link because I can't copy and paste. So we'll have him get everything prepared and then I'll check with you guys and see when we can meet and get it squared away.
And we have by the end of the month.
End of the month. yeah.
February 1st, I believe, is the file
And I-
deadline.
And I will be out of country the last week.
Of January
Yeah.
into that first week.
So the week of the 23rd.
As long as it doesn't, yeah.
Yeah.
The week of spring.
As long as they don't have airfare issues or airplane issues.
No airfare issues. So,
That they shut them all down
Yeah.
this morning.
Again,
This
like they
morning,
did this
yeah,
morning.
yeah.
Great. Okay. Be it resolved that the Zanesville City Schools Board of Education meeting is adjourned at
6:41.
6:41. Yeah, hello. May I have a motion, please?
Along the move.
And a second?
Leo second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yeah.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening. Thank you for coming.
Oh.
Okay, it's one more.